Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hello, welcome. I'm so happy you're tuning in today because today Russell and I are bridging together two worlds that often might be thought to be separate. One is the disciplined, devotional path of Ashtanga yoga, and the other one is the imaginative, visual, shadow literature universe of storytelling and poetry. And so my guest today, Jessica Murphy, she is the embodiment of both of these things. As an Ashtanga yoga practitioner who's incredibly devoted to her practice, and a professor of English literature specializing in Victorian and Romantic poetry of the 19th century. She is an expert in the unsettling beauty of Gothic fiction. She is the author of the book called Wishbone, a novel, and also co-authored two strikingly original works of art. The first one is called Ossa Vivi, which is a haunting Gothic short story collection, and it was co-written with another author, May Kellert, and she co-authored another beautiful book called Moss and Rose, which is an epistolary novella told through letters. So a letter writing type of fiction, for those of you who don't know what epistolary means, between aging women, and it's a meditation on memory and friendship and the quiet truths that surface only through time. And so our conversation today, as you can imagine, is just a deep and insightful exploration of Jessica's journey, her story, navigating from her own experience with an eating disorder as a teen to eventually coming into the Ashtanga yoga practice and starting to reclaim her relationship with her body and finding her inner strength and also learning how to be soft and embodied and flexible in her approach to life. And we talk a lot about her family dynamics and many experiences, ruptures and reckonings, and the tenderness and the grit that has informed her life and her creative writing. So what I love today is Jessica's beautiful way with language. She speaks with such vivid imagery and clarity and metaphors. And this is truly a conversation about what it means to inhabit a body that you once mistreated and how art, like writing, like yoga, can be a place of expression and exploration and true freedom, allowing the spirit that is inside the body to come home back into itself again, to meet itself again. So for anyone who loves literature, who may be a yoga enthusiast, or is on that long trajectory of healing, this is a story, this is a podcast, a conversation that is for you, all about the stories we write, the lives we live, and how we are often reflections of one another. Hello, welcome today. We have a very special guest.
Thank you so much, Harmony. This is Russell, co-host of the Finding Harmony podcast. That's really like the nicest thing that you've ever said to me or about me. in public. And I also have a guest I wanted to introduce.
Oh, you have a guest here today too?
Yeah.
That's so nice.
This is Jessica Murphy.
Yeah.
She's a fangirl of the show from Montreal, currently lives in Iceland.
I want you to tell everyone, because we're talking about your students and writing. And so tell everyone what you do and your accomplishments. You have some beautiful achievements that are very unusual for most people.
Well, I'm a professor of English literature at the University of Iceland in the English study department. And I've been teaching there since 2017. And my husband also teaches in the same department, but we barely see one another. So we're like two ships like passing in the day. He's from Canada as well. He grew up in Windsor, Ontario. Yes, we're two Canadians.
Teaching English to Icelandic people, English literature.
Yes, English literature, yes. Not the English language, but it's really, a focus on literature, literary analysis and writing. I teach a creative writing course as well.
Don't they have their own literature there in like Scandinavia?
They do, but we teach in a faculty where there are all kinds of different departments. So there's French studies and Russian and Japanese. So we're in the English studies. There's a whole Icelandic building, actually. They have their own building. We're all all the languages were kind of lumped together and Verald in one building. But the Icelandic studies, actually, they just got a brand new building. It's very nice. You guys should come to Iceland. Well, I know, Harmony, you've been, but you should come back just to see their building and where they store all the ancient texts.
You've been 3 times.
3 times.
I've been twice.
Yeah.
And it's one of those countries where you think, oh, I should really visit Iceland. And then you go and you realize that it is unlike any other place on earth. And you really should visit.
That's true.
So for you all at home, you may notice that we're having a little bit of network struggle. And I want you just to sit back with your cup of coffee and enjoy this. We're corresponding with the frontier, okay? And so these people are very far away. And in living memory, these people used to sleep with their sheep in like the 80s because it was so cold.
Like the 1980s.
The 1980s. They would often, go into their little cave homes and sleep with their sheep. And then the idea of bubblegum coming from America was like this fantastical idea. So this is what Jessica is calling from, a little cave in the snow, which is
a cave, yes. Yeah, turf house. I'm in a turf house right now, just trying to connect to the outside world. Hoping that I can.
So tell everyone, so you're a professor of English literature, and when we met, you hadn't written a book. And then over the course of the many years, it's been several years now since we've known each other, you wrote your own book. Tell us a bit about it and what inspired you and how it came to be.
Yeah, well, I wrote a book entitled Wishbone, which, it's funny, my mother can never get the title straight, so she calls it Fishbone or anything but Wishbone. And it is a work of autobiographical fiction or a fictionalized autobiography. And what it does is it looks at a young girl's coming of age, and it looks at, so it goes through from her birth to adolescence. And it really dives into like some of the difficult adolescent years and how that is for young women. So it looks at things like eating disorders, depression, anxiety, and coming out of that or trying to come out of that. So most of the book focuses on the teenage years, but towards the end, it kind of brings the reader to a later point in the protagonist's journey. And it talks, there's an ending, but unfortunately, it's not a happy ending. It's not the ending that my mom or maybe some readers would want, where everything is perfect and the person is completely at peace with themselves and their body and the world. It's a bit more complicated. And I think my mother, what she was hoping that I would do in this book is resolve once and for all the problem of anorexia and tell parents and people suffering how they could avoid this and what exactly to do. So my mom was looking for a how-to, but what I ended up writing was more, I hope, a lyrical or a literary kind of work. But I'm sort of a poet first and foremost, so I think poetry kind of informs this novel. There are no poems in it, but I mean stylistically speaking. So that's that particular work. It's funny talking about it because it's been a number of years, so I almost feel like I'm talking about something else, but it's still dear to my heart. And then I co-wrote two other works with a friend and a former graduate student of mine. One is called Moss and Rose, and it's two older women who are friends and they travel the world and they're hoping at one point to meet up again. And they actually spent time together in Iceland, but they're both these older ladies who have this lengthy correspondence and they write about the places they visited, where they're at in their lives. And it's kind of a warm and fuzzy, it's sort of more sentimental, but it's in the epistolary genre. And that
Letter
was
writing.
fun to do. It was fun to co-write something. Yeah, letter writing, exactly. Yeah. And the last work that I co-wrote recently was Ossa Vivi, so Living
Ooh.
Bones from Latin. And it's a collection of Gothic short stories. And there are three different parts to it. So one focuses more on setting, one is more characterization. And there's this very Gothic vampiric woman with a cat. And you can't really pinpoint her age or her past, but she's a very cryptic kind of figure. And then the last part, there's a bird and there's yoga. So
Wow.
yeah, it looks at this woman and a pigeon. It's inspired in part by my own struggles ongoing with Shavasana. So I had to fictionalize. I had to do something with that, So it took on this shape and this form. And my friend pitched in from her non-yogic part to writing some of the parts or some of the chapters of that particular section.
That's fascinating. I was just talking about this with my mom yesterday, randomly, because my mom, has been writing short stories about all of her weird little experiences in the 60s.
She has?
Yeah. Very entertaining short story my mom sent me yesterday. And we were talking about it. And I mentioned to her something that it was apropos to our current conversation. I don't know if you know the author Jim McManus out of Chicago, but
Not really, no.
he was a poet and a novelist, and something he said to me once was that a novel is an open hand, whereas a poem is a fist, and it hits you, right in the end,
Yeah.
and then so what is a short story? Because you can get something like a Kafka one paragraph short story or a Raymond Carver essay on
Yeah.
marriage. And I'm just wondering what you think about that. So if you take a poet's perspective and you bring it to a short story, it's going to be, I think, a little bit more open-ended.
Like a slap in the
A
face, like an
slap in the
open-handed
face,
punch.
like a Zen koan. So this is the
Yeah.
situation, and this is the situation I was
kind
in
of, yeah.
physically, and here I am,
Yeah.
and now you deal with it.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of in between the two. So there's the length
Mhm.
part, of course, because technically my first book is actually a novella. It's maybe too short to be considered a novel. And now we're kind of, not to split hairs, but a novella, it's its own. It's a short novel. So short stories, I see it kind of as it takes maybe from both a bit. So it takes a bit, or it can, depending on the writer, take a bit from poetry and a bit from a longer
Mhm.
form or genre like the novel or novella. And certainly a lot of symbolism. There is a sort of open-ended quality. Not everything is going to be, you can't flesh everything out like characterization, arguably, as much as you could in
Mhm.
a lengthier, in a 3-volume Victorian
Mhm.
triple-decker, as they're also called, So Dickens wrote those, Wilkie Collins and other. That was the popular genre in the mid-19th century, was the 3-volume novel. And a lot of these were initially serialized. So they were published kind of like, we watch our favorite TV shows. So, and then oftentimes the last episode, of a show or of a given season will end with a cliffhanger. And the idea is to keep you
Wow.
watching, right? So these writers like Dickens, they were doing the same kind of thing. And they could test out their material to see how well it was working with their readers, like which characters they liked, what aspects, because they were doing it very much kind of on the fly or as they went along. And then afterwards, it would be put into, a book form, or you'd have the 3 volumes, and then it would be sold as
Oh,
such.
I decided that I was gonna die pretty soon, like in the next 40 years or something like that, and so it was like, that's pretty soon now,
Okay. Yeah.
and I thought, "Well, I haven't read
Yeah.
War and Peace," so I should,
You
and
should.
I'm a third of the way through,
Yeah.
and my
Uh-huh.
first response is, I had no idea it was a comedy, and it was that fucking
Yeah.
funny, which surprised me. It was like reading Moby Dick. I didn't know that Moby Dick was like reading Monty Python, and it's just hilarious,
Yes.
hilarious works.
It's
And
hilarious.
so
Yeah.
that shocked me. But do you think that War and Peace would also been presented that way, like each chapter kind of serialized and published as a piece, or did
Yeah.
it come out as a whole?
I'm not sure about that one because really my area of specialty and of expertise is the 19th century Victorian,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
British. So I'm not sure what was being done, in Russia or even in France. I like a lot of the
Yeah.
French writers, but I don't really know how they were
Right.
presenting and distributing their work in different parts of the world. I mean, I'm tempted to say, but this is just speculation. So you'd have to double check that it might have been similar, but I'd have to check that, and I'd encourage you to do the same. I don't want to
And
mislead you. So I'll say like what I tell my students, which is I don't know, but I can get back to you, or you can look into it yourself and let
Exactly.
me know when you find the answer. Tell
every
me.
yoga teacher should
Yeah.
have the same relationship to their students, to just be honest. Like, I just no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, be honest. Yeah. No, actually, my dad, who was also a prof, he told me that very early on. And I think especially when you're younger, now I have some, I have age and experience on my side, and I'm halfway there too. Like in terms of my life, I'm probably at the
Mhm.
halfway mark. So I have half of my life,
Yeah.
give or take, left. So I'll probably die in the next 40 years if
Yeah,
I'm
if
lucky
lucky.
or
If you're
unlucky. Depends
lucky,
how it goes. Yeah.
shorter than that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, much shorter. Which brings us to another work that I like, which is The Death of Ivan
Oh,
Ilyich.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
by Tolstoy, and
Oh,
it's excellent. I recommend that work. That's probably my
oh,
favorite
oh,
work by
fantastic.
Tolstoy,
We
for
might
sure.
have them in our
So read that one. It's a
I
short
read it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys would love it because it looks at issues of religion and spirituality and coming to terms with the purpose of life and one's relationships to others and what's the
Mhm.
meaning of it all. And yeah, it's fascinating work, and it's amazing what he's able to fit into such a
Mm.
slim
So,
tome.
to get maybe to get away from Russia and back to England, and so, Pride
Okay,
and
yeah.
Prejudice, would that have been
Yes.
presented in a serialized form? Also hilarious, but
Yes, Pride and Prejudice. So that was an earlier work, and I don't believe that that one was serialized. So Pride and Prejudice, that's the Regency
ah,
period. So it's before my area is Victorian. My sister
mhm,
period is Romantic. So that's the 19th century. The Romantic era basically starts in 1789. And Jane Austen, sometimes she's lumped in with the
mhm.
Romantics, but I have a friend who teaches the long 18th century and Restoration literature, and they sometimes take Jane Austen. So basically, there's a tug of war between us for who gets to claim Jane Austen, and we kind of both do. Just like actually
Yeah.
for the Brontes, some romanticists claim that the Brontes are romantic because there are a lot of elements of romantic literature in their writing. But if you look at the dates, they are actually
Mhm.
Victorians. So we Victorians claim the Brontes
Well,
are
it's
ours.
true,
It's like turf war. You
Yeah,
guys know a
yeah.
bit about this
but
from
it's
Ashtanga,
also
right? Like defending
That's
your little
right.
patch of
your generation is important, and then sometimes people are nostalgic, and so you get people that try to
Yes.
practice the way that Nancy Gilgoff does and teach that way, but it always looks a little
Yeah.
old-fashioned, and then there are people who are out
Yeah.
there doing crazy stuff, and
Those
it's
are the Russians. The
the
Russians are like
rush.
the innovators
Oh,
of
okay.
like the crazy yoga
But
forms.
Okay.
nobody's heard from the Russians in 5 years, so nobody has any Ugh.
Okay.
People have
So no
no
one knows what
idea
they're
what
up
they're
to.
doing anymore. Yeah.
No.
But tell us a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to
I
dive into
Oh,
you.
you do now?
Yes,
You do?
yes. I think it's interesting
Wow.
this fascination that we've talked about, like existentialism and death, and like how
Mhm.
you came into not only studying Victoria literature, but also this passion, obsession,
You
love, devotion for the Ashtanga yoga practice. What is the relationship there?
It's funny because I think it does kind of come from my dad, who was a hippie, and he was interested in, spirituality and mysticism and always like in expanding his own consciousness.
mm,
And I told Harmony in the past that my dad did TM, so he's into transcendental meditation. And so he had a really interesting trajectory. So from a young age, like for my dad, but also, when he was a young man, but also as a young father, when I was a kid, I remember having these really philosophical conversations with my dad, very existential about death and the
mhm.
meaning of life. And it would always end with me in tears because I was like, well, I don't want to, because it was kind of shattering. I was brought up Catholic, but it was sort of shattering the foundations of my faith. I was saying, well, what if when we die, nothing happens and we don't even
Mhm.
know that we're dead? And I don't even have my
Yeah.
memories, Dad, so I can't even lie in my grave and just think of all the happy times, or even think of you. I won't even know that I knew you. I won't even know that I
Mhm.
was me. It'll all be
Yeah,
gone, obliterated, because that was the point that I'd arrived at the age of, like, I think at
exactly.
least 12. And my dad said, "Well, that's great. You'll be fodder for, like, you'll enrich the soil and that'll be your and I was like, "No!" Like, just
Yeah,
breaking down in
yeah.
tears. And my mother was
Yeah.
getting so angry, at the 2 of us. She's like, "You too?" She was like, "Carl, don't get her started, and stop having these conversations." So I think it like developed into this fixation and a fear of death. I didn't really know anyone around me who had died, other than when I was 13, my grandfather, who
Mm.
had Alzheimer's, he died of the disease, and I went to see him with my dad when he had just a few hours after he died, which probably wasn't a good idea, because I think it started like this kind of unhealthy, like, fixation and focus on death, and that took up a lot of space in my
What's
my consciousness.
unhealthy?
But to bring this to yoga,
Mm.
well, I think I was too, it was like a very dark place to be for such a young person, to be thinking so much about my own mortality and about what would happen to our family, and to be kind of terrified and sort of paralyzed by this prospect that we were all gonna die and it was all
Paralysis is maybe
senseless.
not so good, but I think it could turn you into a very interesting kid and
Oh, yeah,
an
I was.
extremely interesting adult, which is all we can really pray for from our children, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Very tortured, though. I was very tortured as an not as a child, but as an adolescent, and then in my 20s and onwards. So it started at the beginning of that, but I think it's in the DNA. My dad, so to get back to the question about yoga, so my dad was always a seeker. He actually, in fact, considers himself a Zen Catholic.
I've heard of
I've
that.
never heard of that.
And my dad used to talk to me about things like, yeah, transcendental meditation and the Maharaji and his days as a hippie. And I remember as a kid and a teenager, I used to like to do just headstand or sit in lotus. I would just cross my legs and that
Mm.
felt very nice. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So I think all these, like, the seeds were planted early. And then in my 20s, I kind of dabbled in different types of yoga, but I didn't really commit to, I was kind of just going to a vinyasa class here and a yin class there and just doing a bit of whatever. And it was before I left Montreal that I had a yoga teacher who said, because I was worried about moving to Iceland, and I said, what if the yoga there is like just really boring? Because I'm like very type A and driven, and I wanted something
Mhm.
challenging. And she said, try Ashtanga. And I had no idea what that was. She was like, try Ashtanga, you won't be bored.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I just kept it like I put it in my hoppers, my dad would say, to use one of his old expressions. And I came to Iceland, what was I, 38? And then when I was 39, so I did a little bit of yoga, but then I think it was 2018, I started sort of dabbling, where I dipped my toe into the waters of Ashtanga. And at first it was just very casual. Like, I would just go to a lead class. For the first 2 years, I'd say it was just like a few times a week. And I liked it, but I wasn't ready. I hadn't committed to the 5 or 6 day a week practice. And then the pandemic came along and there were different offerings online. So Harmony had a class on the Fridays, and David and Yelena were offering like a full package. So I did a lot of
Mhm.
stuff with them, and I just loved it. That's when my practice went from like, so in 2020, from like a few times a week and not that serious to like super serious. And then I wanted to learn drop backs. And I am not a backbender. I love doing things like hip stuff, strength stuff, or arm balances. I'm very comfortable with that. Forward folds. But back bends, ugh,
Yeah.
it was
It
scary but exciting, and I wanted a challenge, so I was like, "How can I challenge myself physically and, like, grow?" I was looking for some kind of growth, and not to totally relate physical growth to spiritual growth, but that was my first foray, is, like, using the body and trying to be embodied, because what I do is so much up here, it's so cerebral, so I want it to, like, really come into my own body and experience some kind of
it's such a
transformation.
beautiful little metaphor for your journey because it strikes me as peculiarly Gothic. That you could be
Yes.
focused on hip opening and
Mhm.
the groins and the seat of your sexuality and be very, firmly strong and straight and like that's and you can see that person like wearing a big black hood, and then like take
Yeah,
that
yeah.
person and introduce vulnerability to them. It's like, "Oh."
Oh, yeah.
Vulnerability.
No.
And it's like it's
Yeah. That's darker than dark. Yeah.
dark is to open that
Yeah,
up because
that's really Gothic. Yeah.
it's so antithetical to be Gothic. It's so antithetical to the hippie love child who's so blissfully open all the time, you know? And it's like she's quite dark, but she
Yeah.
doesn't struggle with just like letting
Yeah.
herself be ripped open. So
That's because I'm so dark.
Yeah.
it's
No, I struggle with that.
so dark.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
we both struggle with the
Mm.
being ripped open, the vulnerability, and just the like showing the, and animals are like that too. They don't show, like I see with my cats,
Mm.
and I remember this with dogs. They don't show the front that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
protect that part. It's where all
Yeah.
the organs are. And oh yeah, and the vampires.
Right.
The vampires
Right?
sleep like this protected.
Yeah.
They
This is how I went to
Yeah,
Ashtanga
it's very
yoga, was
safe
this position. This.
But this is also how you stand when you're ready for, the teacher to come and
Yeah.
help you with,
Okay, come help
the drop
me
backs
with
or the
back bends
catching. Yeah.
now. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Mm.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's also I have like masochistic tendencies. So the backbends appealed to me for not being a natural backbender. It was like, how can I torture myself more the way
Yeah,
I
thus
did
your
when I was young?
obsession with the Victorian era as well.
Yes, exactly. I love the Victorian era. I love Gothic texts. One of the works that I wrote my doctoral dissertation on is Jekyll and Hyde. So I like
Yeah.
transformation.
Or split personality.
What
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that as well. The doctor by day and this
monster.
hideous creature.
When I was really going through
Yeah.
it and I really had to just suck it up and be a backbender if I was going to get anywhere. And I had this ambition to go somewhere, which you don't have to have if you're sitting at home. But I had
Yeah, I have that
so
too.
I was
No.
like, I really feel like I could get somewhere with this. And then like that destroys your entire practice, actually. and, s-
It
and
does.
so I was with Guy and I was in New York and it was 2000 and he was like, "Okay, you're a handstander, you're Mr. Floaty Pants, but now you have to
Yeah.
be and Mr. Wide Open Groin and like now you have to be a backbender." I'm like, "Well, I'm a David Swenson student, like this isn't cool." I thought David Swenson was cool, you know. He's no
Mhm.
backbender. And so I had to visualize that I was going through a death, and it felt like death, and it felt like I was gonna die as the moment I woke up, I was full of the terror. And then I would get to class finally after having done, anything I could to get myself ready. And so I go to class and you get ripped open into the posture, which is what it felt like. I would always come out of it
Mhm.
gasping, and I had felt like my neck
Yeah, same.
had been trapped, and I had been
Yeah.
choked into the posture.
Uh-huh.
I could finally breathe, and so it really is like an S&M practice
Yeah.
to do this in this dungeon,
A little,
sex
yeah, I
dungeon
bet.
of New York, you know?
Yeah.
And then I would have to say that I had to then very much appreciate in that moment that I was now done with it. And the key
Mhm.
to Kapotasana for me was to transform death into release. And that was the only way that I was gonna be able
Interesting.
to
Yeah.
emotionally balance myself in a place where I could be an okay person who does Kapotasana. If I could look
Yeah.
forward to the experience of relief and release.
Yeah, I think that you have to obviously go in calm. It's so difficult. For me, capo taps definitely much more into the
Mm,
death drive than like a
mhm.
sex drive. So
Yeah.
if we're it's much more like
Mm,
flirting with death than anything pleasurable. Maybe for some people it's enjoyable. I guess people who have more
yeah,
ease in that area. But for me, there's nothing pleasant or pleasurable other than when it actually goes well, or the times when you're able to trick yourself into being relatively
yeah,
relaxed, and then you come out and you feel like you've kind of flirted or you've skirted the edges of death, but you've come out okay, and
yeah.
you're like, "Phew, okay, I'm still around. I'm
That's
needed."
so interesting. I love that description of it because I think there is sort of an element to that in our lives. I think Kapotasana is a beautiful
Mm,
way to highlight that. But I think there's an element to that we seek out, I think, as humans. Um, this sort of
Yeah.
like pushing up against the edge of death
Mhm.
to come out the other side and be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm still here." Like, it creates this,
Yeah.
almost euphoria.
Yeah, I think the euphoria comes after the pose, and then you're like, "Oh my god, okay, that's done, and I'm actually okay."
Yeah.
And
Throw
yeah,
my feet
yeah,
behind
it's over
now.
for
Yeah.
today. Yeah, that I would
I'm
rather any
curious,
day.
like, how this relates to your early struggles because you wrote a whole novella on your anorexia and your journey through that. And obviously, it's a topic that you've gone very deep in your life and came to the practice as someone who had already, recovered or healed to a certain extent.
Yeah,
So it wasn't like
yeah,
it was the
yes.
practice that was, doing this healing. But what's your relationship between sort of that journey and then coming into yoga and sort of, yeah, just like this obsession with death?
Yeah, well, I think for me, some poses kind of bring and it shows me the work
Mm,
I still have to do. Like, I think back bends in general, and I guess capo in particular, it shows me that even though I've come a long way in terms of making peace with my body and my earlier struggles, there's still more that I can do. Because that for me, when I go into that pose, I feel like it kind of brings up some of those old feelings of, not enoughness, of my body being deformed. So some of the body, dysmorphia, where I'm like, everyone else can do this but me. Or if they can't do it right away, give them a few months or like, I don't know, a year or two. I've been at it for a number of years now. And it's getting better, but I mean, it's really a work in progress. But because of this, because I feel like such an anomaly, it brings back those feelings that I had as a teen of not fitting in, of being weird, of being a freak, of being deformed physically. And that for me is scary because it's like then I'm feeling those things, but I feel like everyone can see it. Like my inability to do this posture is like suddenly like I'm so vulnerable. I'm putting that out there that look at me, I can't do what it seems like everyone else can master given a bit of time. So it and then these thoughts kind of show me, okay, this is work that I have to do. And I keep coming back to this posture to try and work through it. And then off the mat too. I mean, then you have to seek out other
mhm.
kinds of
Yeah.
help, like,
Mm,
talk therapy or other stuff to say, well, how come some of this stuff, these demons that I thought I'd conquered long ago, and in a way that I have, mostly, but not entirely, there's still more that can be done there. And there's an
Mhm.
old wound that it kind of brings to the surface each and every time. So that's been interesting. And I've had conversations both with, my teachers, but also with fellow practitioners and I think everyone maybe has that pose that brings up either the not enoughness or that one that feels like they're
mm,
hitting a brick wall. But I think when you have some kind of history and maybe body image stuff and eating disorder stuff, it's easy in your weaker moments to think, oh, if I could just, I don't know, lose weight or if I could just change my body somehow, I would be able to do
Yeah.
this pose. But I've heard from countless people who've said it's not about weight. It just because the long and
mm.
really, long and lean are very like, yeah, those people seem to be able to kind of go into it naturally. But I've seen sort of more full bodied people also be able to do. It's about an openness, it's a certain quality,
Yeah.
it's a body type that doesn't necessarily revolve
Mhm.
around thinness, but it's so easy in my mind to make it about that. And I think that's like, obviously
It's
stuff from my
also like
past. Yeah.
the problem is the idea of success isn't the goal.
Yeah, for
Success
sure.
isn't the goal at all,
Yeah.
and so people who have ease aren't getting anything out of it.
Well, I know. I know people who were able to do it on the first try. I know some people who got it within a
Yeah.
week or a few months. And, like, they didn't learn I'm getting some this physically, mentally, emotionally, because it's been really hard for me, and it's the same thing for me to do a jump back. I didn't really learn much about myself because I could do
Mm,
that pretty early on. Not right away, but
mhm,
fairly quickly. That just sort of made me
mhm.
strengths and other stuff too, so it's really it didn't make me it wasn't as confronting, you
Yeah,
know?
that confronting
Yeah.
the is this notion of the beginner's mind. Like, that was, like, the real benefit of
Yeah.
Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance is how to approach something that requires expertise with a beginner's mind so that you're not jaded and cynical at the end of it, but, like, you're still searching and
Yeah.
exploring and open-mouthed in wonder at the thing. Like, "Oh." Like, and so mastery actually doesn't help you at all.
No, it doesn't really. Yeah. I mean, that's not the point of yoga, but we as humans, and especially too people like myself who've gone through the school
Mhm.
system and, it's easy to kind of get caught in, stereotypical or traditional notions of success, which is that you move from this, from being an undergrad to a graduate student, a master's student, and then a doctoral student, and then possibly you do a postdoc. So in my mind, I even made like a false equivalency. So I said, okay, which I realize is completely nuts and it doesn't make sense and this isn't how it works. But that primary series was like doing an
Mhm.
undergrad degree. That intermediate was like you're doing your master's. And third and fourth, that was getting into
Yep.
doctorate and postdoctorate
Not at all.
territory. So I remember early on, yeah. I remember early on my goal wanting to be like, I just really wanted to get to the first or second posture of third. And now my goal is just to get to, I'm sort of doing the half split with one of my teachers, but with my two main teachers that I see frequently, I'm still a capo. So I'm there and I've been there for a while. So now my goal is just like in this lifetime, or one of my more tangible goals. I have other goals, but is just to get to the proper half split if that
Well, you
could
you
ever
can see
happen.
how something like LSD would be so destabilizing to the academic structure of the '60s and '50s, where they
Yes.
are being
Yeah, yeah.
introduced to
You're
LSD and then realizing that scales of achievement are
Imaginary.
imaginary and not helpful, and
yes.
what you really should
Yeah.
be doing is dropping out of
It's
school.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
right away, someone like your dad, who clearly did LSD, is saying to himself, "Who am I? What am I doing? Why am I continuing in this academic sphere and creating elitist structures?"
Yeah,
The
exactly.
problem being is that, well, 50 years later, you get a massive generation of men who've thrown off elitist structures and have learned fuck all in their lives. Just a shout out to Joe
Yeah.
Rogan if you're listening.
But it's funny, yeah, what you say about the whole LSD. My dad is a big he was interested in, Timothy
Good.
Leary and those other guys, and of course the
Yeah,
Beats, Allen Ginsberg. And my dad did that's kind of like his trajectory. I mean, he went on, he did his undergrad, and then he did a master's in English lit. Then he went into
the
the
Jesuits.
Jesuits. And
Mm.
yeah, yeah. But he didn't like the self-flagellation, and he wanted to get married. So he said, "Well, this isn't really for me." He said, "I think I would like to get married and start a family."
And
So, yeah.
stop
So
torturing
then
my
he went
body.
in
I'm gonna start torturing
yeah,
my daughter instead.
exactly. So then he went in the other direction, but also when he was a hippie, I mean, I'm all for like, I follow a vegan or plant-based diet myself, but there was a period where my dad was just living on brown rice
Yeah,
and
nice.
lentils and whatever he'd grow too in the country place. So he had his own commune. And yeah,
Yeah.
he ate whatever came from the land, whatever, so he would supplement with that. But he was always sort of looking for something his whole life. So he did go off that beaten path, became a hippie, went to California at one point, San Francisco, and he worked on the cable vision. He installed people's cable. Sometimes, yeah, mostly legally.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you need work.
Mostly.
And
Yeah.
that's like when I read Jack Kerouac, like,
Yeah.
I went out and I got a job. Like, that's a great novel that convinces young
Yeah.
men to go out and get a job. And I was
Yeah, it's
like,
a great book.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm now living the Tao. I'm in the Zen paradise in this Italian kitchen
Yeah.
in New Orleans. Like, my fingers are bleeding and, like, this is real life now. And I'm just gonna go
Yeah. Have you read any of Kerouac's haikus? He's got some
I
great
couldn't
haikus.
repeat them off the top of my head, but do you have any memorized?
I don't have any memorized, but I have a number that I
Yeah?
really, really
Oh, yeah.
like. Some about cats, some about
Yeah.
spirituality.
Oh.
Unfortunately, this is one thing that I lament about current but also the one I received, which I feel is a good one. We're not taught to memorize things. In my dad's generation, they really learned. My dad had some friends, and it wasn't just people who were studying theater. In English literature, they would recite and
Mhm.
remember passages. They also know the only thing that I had that I was anywhere near close to that, and it's not even really that close, is I took a class on Middle English, and we had to go to the teacher's office and read a part of the
Mhm.
Canterbury Tales by
Yeah.
Chaucer in Middle English with the correct pronunciation. So we had like a 5-minute test and he would just listen and then give us feedback. So that was the only thing that was in any way kind of like that type of test. Because even I've done different presentations, but then that was, of course, would be a paper that I'd written beforehand or with slides. So it's not really remembering.
It's so interesting. We're
passages.
kind of like we have been as a culture moving more and more away from like memorization and like testing our minds and using our minds to their full capacity, really, right? Into faster and faster pace, kind of like learning, processing, just knowing where to find the information rather than actually creating or thinking about new information. It's worrisome.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I find to a certain extent, and I kind of wish that I had that skill just to be able to recite Shakespeare off the top of my head. Okay, are you able to?
He memorized something because he wanted to memorize this passage.
I really did memorize it. Okay,
Oh my gosh.
the queen is dead.
The queen is dead.
She should have died here or after. There would have been time for such a word. Tomorrow. And tomorrow. And tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Oh, I forgot the next part.
How did you forget it?
That's quite
a bit. Yeah, that's a fair bit that you memorized. Yeah,
you got the stage right. You forgot
pretty
it.
good.
I made eye contact with myself, and I spaced. Yeah.
You got self-conscious.
You
and then you
threw yourself off. Yeah. That happens to me, or used to happen to me more as a young lecturer, where I'd get aware that I was giving my lecture, and I would all of a sudden kind of freeze just for a moment. And that doesn't happen so much anymore. It's still from time to time, but I'm not so painfully self-aware. It was almost like I was seeing myself like the witness, like in a very Buddhist way, and it would become sort of too much. But I do know some Blake, actually, the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? And look, it's about symmetry, too. So all the things are kind of coming back to, like, focus on symmetry. There's a theme here, or a motif.
And the Ashtanga yoga is like the thread, the through line.
The thread, yeah.
The little basket.
Looking for symmetry, we could call this.
Viloma, isn't that Viloma? Isn't Loma is thread?
The Loma Viloma. Yeah, it's
Loma,
like the hair.
The hair,
yeah.
Thank you for letting me indulge myself with.
Yeah, it was quite good. I enjoyed it.
I wondered if you could read from one of your own works. Is that possible?
Yes, I could. So let me just get something that I could read for you guys.
If people are watching on YouTube, we'll just entertain them here ourselves.
Out, brief candle.
Life is but a something.
Walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard. No, I'm doing it now. Is heard no more. 'Tis a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury. Of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
This is beautiful.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's like, I think it's my favorite passage in fucking literature.
In history.
In all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's also about death and life.
Yeah. So we went ahead and we did
He finished. He remembered the end. Well, that was our intermission performance.
Harmony gave me
okay.
prompt.
I gave him a prompt. Life is but a...
Okay.
Okay, we're ready for you now, though.
We may not even cut out that break now. We might keep it. Yeah.
Well, you guys have a choice. So the two that I was able to pull off the shelf, not my work of autobiographical fiction, fortunately or unfortunately, but the one that I co-authored, actually, well, the two works that I co-authored. So this, as you probably recall and can tell from the cover, is the work of the collection of Gothic short stories, Ossa Vivi. And this is Moss and Rose, the epistolary novella. So should we go with something dark and Gothic or about friendship and bonds between older women who are globe travelers?
I'm interested in the more ossified book.
This one. Okay.
Since we're talking about death and life and duality.
Okay. Well, I'll read you guys a little bit from the first chapter. So this is a part that I wrote entitled The Face in the Window. So that's the name of this chapter. So past the frightened rabbit in the bush and the lone black snake that slithers away from the footpath, beyond the tall trees that almost obliterate the sky and drown out anything other than the abundance of green leaves and black bark, lies a house, the only one for miles, a rustic manor. It is covered in ivy and nearly consumed by it on one side. The building has become one with its environment, like a sunken ship swallowed by the sea and then appropriated by various aquatic creatures for their own purposes. Somber and stately, the place has assumed a tree-like look, its exposed dark gray walls standing sturdy and rooted, as if fixed for all eternity, and its plant-covered portion signaling the triumph of nature over civilization. Its large oak doors appear to be seldom, if ever, open, and its narrow windows face out like vacant and watery eyes, staring blankly at the forest, but preventing it and the odd visitor from seeing in. All the windows are on the second and third floors, except for one large circular window facing out from the garret. It is as though the first floor was originally intended to be a basement or a dank cellar, but managed to avoid that fate, at least somewhat, by finding itself above ground. Below the roof, but above the attic and its sole window, there is a clock that ticks away the seconds and chimes every quarter of an hour without fail, trying to impose order on the surrounding chaos, perhaps the only audible sound of human life and activity outside the dwelling. Stop there.
That's so beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Love it. It evokes such imagery. Do you find that you're a very visual or like an imaginary person? Do you have a lot of like visualizations in your
Yes. So I've always been very imaginative since I was a child, and I love playing with words and language. Like I love that. I love finding words. Not so much crosswords, but I love when they're all jumbled and so the wonder words. And I think about words and I play with words in my head. And I have a lot of dreams too. And nightmares. Yeah. So I draw
amazing.
from that. And some parts of my life have been nightmarish, so I also draw.
How did you meet your husband?
We met actually, it was funny. So we met in Montreal. He's actually also a writer too and an academic, and we're both 19th century specialists, but he is 19th century American and I'm 19th century British. And he's kind of moved more into modernism lately. But we met in Montreal and we both had finished the PhD. So I studied at Université de Montréal, but I did études anglaises, so a PhD in English, but at a French institution. I do speak French. It's my second language. English is my mother tongue. My husband is a unilingual Anglophone, and he had finished his studies, so he did a PhD at McGill. And he looked at the 19th century pragmatists. So he looked at Henry James and William James and other pragmatist writers. And we happened to meet in Montreal, and we realized that we had a number of the same friends. So we met we met kind of, I guess, through a friend. We had a common friend, but then we realized like that we both had so much in common. And I think for a lot of my life too, I didn't want to date. Like in my 20s, I was looking for someone, maybe it was fueled by a kind of self-loathing, but I wanted someone who was completely the opposite of me. And I had a really very nice boyfriend in my 20s who I dated for most of my 20s, but he was totally different from me in every respect. And we had a good relationship, a very nice person, but he wanted different. He was more traditional. Greg is he's very much like me in terms of his interests and his background. He's very open and he's very accepting, but he's very patient, something I'm not. So we met in Montreal, and then we saw that we had a lot in common, and we dated for a bit, and then we moved in together fairly quickly because at that point we were both in our like early 30s and we were looking for something, serious and permanent. And then we got married before we came to Iceland. And so, yeah, we've been married now for a number of years since 2017.
how did you come to make that decision? And I understand the pressures an academic is under to find a life together and find positions together. And is that the
Yes.
heart of it? Is that you both you realize that, like, well, there's double positions open. They'll take both of us. We can go there, and then we can live in the place where the Game of Thrones was written.
No, it wasn't that. So actually in Montreal, Greg had LTAs. So when I met him, he was doing a limited term appointment, which is usually like you have a 3-year kind of teaching gig, but it's no job security. Whereas I had tenure at a college,
Wow.
Vanier College. But we were both looking, so Greg was looking for a more permanent job, and I was looking for a change. I like teaching at the CEGEP level. So CEGEP for like, I guess, American listeners or for people who live outside the province of Quebec, they're like prep schools. So it's like post-secondary,
Right.
pre-university. If you want to go to university in Quebec, you have to
We
go
would
to
call that a
CEGEP.
sixth form
And then you have to do
the UK.
Okay, yeah. So that's what it is. So I like teaching there, but I was sort of looking for something a little bit more stimulating intellectually and otherwise, because you're teaching slightly a younger demographic. And Greg was actually the one who was offered a tenure track position at the University of Iceland. So we had the opportunity to move here. And when we first came, it looked like I would get some teaching, but it wasn't guaranteed. But what I was able to do, because I already had tenure, is I could take a leave for a year. And that was renewable for a period of 3 years, which was the great thing about my job. So it gave me a security, this kind of, this actual sense of security and a bit of time to test the waters and see. Because I knew I could always return to my tenure job at home if I had to. But bit by bit, I kept getting more and more teaching. I started with one course and just as a sessional, and then I became a department member after a few years, whereas my husband was on the tenure track right away. So he started as assistant, and then he jumped all the way to full professor because he's like sort of a hyperachiever, but I mean, he loves what he does too. So he's got all these publications. So it made like he was able to skip the step of associate professor and just go straight to full professor, just based on all of his all the articles he's published and the books, because he's got way more than I have a few articles that I published and my fiction, but my husband has like 3 academic works and his 4th novel will be out soon. And he's got about like 24 or 25 academic articles. So he's extremely prolific, like more than you have to be. So he just kind of, it was like the fast track to full professor. But I'm happy. I'm a department member. I have more job security and I have a fairly secure job, but not like in his position, basically, he has, all the perks of tenure, which is that you can't really lose your job. Mine is more like open-ended contracts. So they just keep every year I just get more teaching and it's good. It's worked out so far for the last 8 years. Yeah.
There must be a lot of pressure to write and publish and stay on that treadmill of academia. And I'm curious how you like balance that with teaching and also your practice. And do you find it like creatively, like I would imagine like it's hard to be so creative under pressure.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. But one of the perks of my job is that with my current position, even though I'm teaching at the university, I'm not required to publish because I'm not strictly on the tenure track. And so all the publications that I have, they look good down the line and it could potentially lead to a promotion or something more secure, hopefully. But I don't have those pressures. So I have a lot of freedom just to continue to explore creative writing, but also to do some academic writing. And anything I do is just a plus. But for my husband, there is that pressure. But in a way for him, it's kind of very easy because he loves doing it and he's so good at it. He has so much practice. It's like a muscle, right? So the more you do it, the more articles you publish in a way. I mean, not to say he still gets rejections for sure from time to time. And it's not like everything, like right now he's looking for a publisher for a work. He wrote a book on the Big Bang because he also did a minor in philosophy. So it's the Big Bang and the multiverse. But now he did a follow-up to that book where he's looking at not the first second of the universe, but a few seconds down the line after the first second. And he has that one written. And he wanted to go with University of Alberta Press, but we don't know what will happen on that front because he hasn't heard back. So he's shopping around for another publisher, basically. So these are some of the stresses that he faces. But because he's so prolific and he's kind of quite seasoned and quite skilled at what he does, it doesn't seem to stress him out too much. I think it's harder for the people who don't do it as much. He kind of lives and breathes writing, in be it scholarly or creative. His output is
Mm.
just vast. Whereas I do it for fun. So it's here and there when I have time. So it's much easier for me to manage all the demands because it's a labor of love and it's done when I can and when I feel it more.
Yeah.
It's more whimsical, or I go more with
And you
inspiration.
can have time for your practice and for other interests.
Exactly, which my husband doesn't really. So he says that to me. He's like, "Oh, but look at you. You do like an hour and 45 minutes of yoga like most days." And he's like, "You spend time with your friends and the cats." For him, it's just like, because he's so consumed. Sometimes even he's making his coffee and he's like, I see him talking to himself because he's thinking, he's just taking a break and thinking about what he's going to write next. So we probably look like two nutters that got, or maybe we are two nutters that got married, but it works well. So the guy who's talking to himself, making the coffee, and the person who's like cat obsessed and yoga, asana obsessed, and yoga obsessed in general have found each other.
It's a good balance.
Yeah. And he takes me as I am. Sometimes he'll push back and he'll be like, wow, more yoga? So he's like, so you're not doing yoga, but you're watching yoga content or you're listening to a yoga podcast,
Yeah.
namely yours, which is my favorite one, or some of the other yoga
Yeah.
podcasts that I also enjoy. But he's like, okay, so when you're not doing yoga, you're thinking about yoga, or you're thinking about when you'll be doing yoga next, or when you'll be teaching. It's like one or the other, or the cats, So my interests are a bit more varied, but it's still, I have a very obsessive nature. Yeah.
That's what I really enjoy about the creative pursuit is how you start to feed a fire and then the fire spreads and it takes off on you and then
Yeah.
it's igniting everything in your world. Especially like when I write, I find that, I all of a sudden like I have to write notes because I'm having ideas coming all the time about the project. And so
Yeah.
like I'll be
Yeah.
teaching yoga and then like I have like Post-it notes that I'm putting away or now like just on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way with painting, and I'll paint, and then as
Yeah.
walking outside, it's almost a little bit like being high where the colors are a little bit crisper, and you see color, you see shape,
Mm-hmm.
you see line, you see, melody in the landscape and in the horizon, and like, oh, I just see painting everywhere, and it just
Yeah.
continues, and
No, that makes sense.
it's but
Yeah.
it's also the same with yoga. Sharath would talk this way about yoga. He said he just thought about yoga and thought about his
Yeah.
postures as he was going to bed at night, as he woke up, he thought about how he would do
Mm-hmm.
a posture
Yeah.
all the time. My anxiety is like,
Yeah.
well, I really kind of feel like at some point I have to knuckle down and just do one of these things. Like,
Yeah, just sort of pick. It's true. But I feel because I have my few specific obsessions, like I like my teaching and my writing, and then cats or animals, and then the yoga practice. So I don't have too many. So I'm not spread
mhm,
too thin. So it's always usually one of those passions or one of those preoccupations that's consuming me. But it's funny what you were saying about stepping outside and feeling almost high, because I remember in high school and CJEP, when people were experimenting with drugs, and I've never
mhm,
really tried anything other than
mhm,
marijuana, and wasn't for me, maybe because I'm a
mhm,
control freak.
mhm.
Marijuana isn't for everyone.
No, definitely not. And people always thought I was on drugs. And I'm like, no, I'm just like this naturally. I don't need drugs. And I would talk to him about it because my dad had taken,
Mhm,
all the hippie drugs and some of the
mm,
non-hippie drugs too. And he said, just tell people you're high on life. You're just normally like this. You don't
mhm,
need drugs. It's
Yeah, you're
already
high on your own
happening,
supply.
And yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing, but it served me well
I think
so
that when
far, I
people are
think.
very sensitive and I think a lot of creative people are very sensitive,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
that, you know, that sensitivity when you're hypersensitive to your environment, and not in necessarily a bad way, just in a way that maybe some other people
Mhm.
have been able to filter or dull or numb their environment. But when you haven't necessarily done that, you've been very sensitive, it is like being high because
Mhm.
you haven't numbed out or dulled
Yeah,
down.
it
And I
is.
think
Yeah.
a lot of sensitive people are also very
Yeah.
creative because you're like channeling this energy that's coming through you. And then also, sometimes that's why I think it also leads to addictions and, behaviors that aren't
Yeah,
necessarily even anorexia, right? Behaviors that are like somehow
for
dulling
sure.
or numbing that
The
part of your brain, of your experience that feels overwhelmed by whatever you're interfacing with.
Yeah, definitely. That speaks so much to I think a lot of my experience with my eating disorder was trying to put something between me and all these intense feelings and sensations because it was just too much. Like it was trying to sort of, in a way, protect myself or deal. And I think too, a lot of creative people also struggle with depression and anxiety. I mean, it's all kind of part and parcel. And I think all of that is just looking for ways. And then the like artistic pursuits help. But yeah, it feels like the world's a bit too much, Like you step outside of your place, kind of, I guess, like what you were saying, Russell, and you're accosted. It's beautiful, but it can be overwhelming with like colors and sounds and people and just things coming at you.
I
It's a lot.
do find sounds and people overwhelming. And
Yeah.
I ask just for absolute silence in the house. Is that too much to ask?
You should come to our place with my husband and I. It's very
should.
quiet because we just have our cats.
You're just
And we're
writing
just
all the
working
time in your
or
head.
I'm doing yoga. Yeah,
Doing your
he's like
silent
this, or I'm doing my
practice, just with
practice.
the breathing.
That's amazing. I feel
Exactly.
like the two of
Yeah.
them are inviting me into their marriage, and I'm gonna think about it.
No, it's
Oh.
not that kind of invite.
Mm.
It was more like fly on the wall, like the fly on the wall
Well, if you're
experience.
sure, talk to your husband.
We're inviting you
Talk
to be
to
a
him.
fly.
Don't just dismiss it out of hand like you are at the moment.
Well, we're both open. We're
Oh,
not
I
that
see.
open.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, our openness is like more like ideas.
It could
and
be like you could
creativity.
come for like a day between 9 to 5 and then you gotta go home.
Yeah. You
I
could
could
come for tea. We could do
It's a
something very
very limited
Victorian.
amount of
Yeah, like a
time now.
tea ceremony.
Yeah, this is really
Yes.
reductionist.
Tea and
this
crumpets.
Conversation. Tea and
Yes.
crumpets.
Tea and crumpets. Yeah, something Victorian, like high tea.
Crumpets, that would be nice. Yeah, go on.
In Victoria, British Columbia, they have the high tea at the Victoria hotel where Queen Victoria or Queen Elizabeth, I don't know which one, actually went to have high tea. It's like $100 or something.
Well, sure, they do a real nice job of it.
Yeah.
Have you never
Tea and
had
cake.
Have you never had high tea?
No, I never went and had
No,
high
it's
tea.
a real nice thing to do.
I don't appreciate tea and cake that much.
You really should. But it's like that's why
Yeah.
we're not having tea, I guess, in the house, but a really nice cup of tea is nice.
Well, they do that at the Queen Elizabeth
Oh,
too in
yeah.
Montreal. They have like a tea, and actually, I think for my sister's one of her baby showers, we went. It was nice, and they give you like little sandwiches, but it's very expensive. You're right, Harmony.
Yeah, it's like
price
the
is
thing that
exorbitant.
the tourists do. When you live in Canada, you're sort of like,
Yes.
I don't think so.
But for some reason, my sister wanted to do this, and it turned out to be okay. But I mean, I wouldn't pay if it hadn't been her baby shower. I wouldn't. I
Yeah.
would have opted out probably because I could just make my own tea at home and do my own tea ceremony. I mean, I'm creative enough that I could put that together. I could do some research and find out how to get all the necessary accoutrements or all the tea set that I would need to make it realistic. So I don't think you need to pay for all
No.
these experiences.
Yeah.
I
You
think
can
you need to
recreate.
pay for experiences.
We went to
I think artists should be
Yeah.
paid for their contribution to society.
That's true.
Oh,
I
I agree with that. Yes, that's true. But is presenting tea an art, though? Is that truly an art
did
form?
a portrait once for a friend. He had paid me. Greg Kinsey, if you're still out there, he was a VP at HSBC and got us our premier account at HSBC. And he wanted a painting of himself with the medal that the Emperor of Japan had given him for his contribution to Japanese culture as I don't know the right word, or rishi of the Zen tea ceremony, of the green tea ceremony. So he would do this. He would fly to Japan every season and then do the tea ceremony. And he would be treated like a rock star when he arrived in Japan, like, oh, the white tea guy. And then he would do the tea ceremony, he'd come back. And so he when I finally gave him the painting, he did a tea ceremony for me in his little apartment in the Upper East Side. And his little apartment was stacked literally floor to ceiling. Like there was just like little canyons that you could walk through the apartment because it was stacked with boxes of tea ceremony equipment. And there was nowhere to walk in the apartment because it was like stacked all the way to the ceiling with these boxes.
Sell it or something?
He was a connoisseur and a collector of tea cups.
Okay.
Got it.
It's very neat,
Okay.
So I mean, you
Okay.
could spend
Okay. I see.
$1,000 on that tea ceremony.
He was an organized hoarder.
It's $1,000 to do the Japanese tea
Yes.
ceremony, and
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you're right,
no.
Russell. I guess, yeah, no, it is an art, and many things can be, I guess, yeah, being a tea connoisseur is an art form, or doing a tea ceremony. It just depends what part of the world you find yourself in, or how seriously, I suppose, you take your tea.
I applaud these
Yeah.
contributions to culture, and I think that they should be purchased. More
Yes.
people should
Yeah, I
pay
guess you're right.
for, like,
Yeah,
a
I guess.
Michelin's you should pay you shouldn't say, "Oh, well, I can
Michelin.
make that at home." You should get someone to make that for you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I guess back to Harmony's point, I suppose I would do that in another place, like maybe not in Canada or in Iceland, but
Ah,
should I return to Japan? Because I was in Japan for some time, but we didn't do the tea. Then it sounds like it might be a nice and immersive and enriching
Yeah.
well,
experience as well to go
to
to the
your
tea
point,
ceremony. Yeah.
there's nothing that makes me wanna kill myself more than bad art. And so when it's done poorly
Okay.
in
Yeah.
British
Or
Columbia,
for
Bad
me, bad
writing,
writing.
it will
exactly.
like, it makes me wanna quit like, I see it and I'm like, "I just give up. I don't wanna paint anymore." It's
Okay. What about bad asanas? When you see someone, like if you were to see like my backbends, would you want to commit, what is it, harikiri or
seppuku.
self?
Seppuku.
Yes, yeah, seppuku, yeah.
No, it really depends. If you were more famous than me as a yoga teacher, I would wanna kill you.
Yes.
I would wanna
Kill
come and
her,
Yes.
not
find you
you.
find you and end your
Okay,
life.
yeah.
Like,
Okay. And then, okay.
but if you were my student, all I have is, like, an infinite
Mhm.
compassion for your ability, and I wanna help
Okay,
as
that's
much
good.
as I
That's
can.
nice. Help me, yeah.
What
Okay. That's
I've
good
had
to know,
ideas
yeah.
throughout the podcast of how to improve your kapatasana, but I was gonna talk to you
We'll
about
we'll do those
off
Oh
offline.
gosh.
offline.
Dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Well,
okay,
thank you
great.
so much for coming on today, Jessica. It's been
Yeah,
so
thank you.
fun to connect.
Yeah, it was
And we
fun.
will put
Yeah.
all the links
Yeah.
to buy your books in the show notes so people can get them. If
Safe
people
show
wanted
notes.
to reach out to you on Instagram and drop you a message, what's your Instagram handle?
It's Dr. J. Katz.
You're J. Katz.
J
Oh, I know Dr.
Yeah,
J.
yeah,
Katz.
I am she,
Fantastic.
the one and only, the ghost that's been
Ah,
haunting you
I knew
online, the
I
presence,
knew
the spectral presence.
I knew Jessica and Murphy, and
Mm.
then Dr. Jessica Murphy, and
Yeah.
I did not know that Dr. Jessica Murphy, who has been making these fun comments that Harmony's been telling me, was the same person as Dr. J. Katz. So now
Yes. So it's like a
I'm
Jekyll
now
and Hyde. No, we are
unified in
one.
my understanding of you.
We
That
are
makes a
one.
lot of sense now.
And there's like the academic side, and then there's the Ashtangi, so the very physical side and the very
Mm,
cerebral bit.
It's
bring it
beautiful.
together.
So you need to create harmony
Yeah.
between.
Yes, so
Yeah.
that's where you come in, right? Yeah.
That's where this podcast all makes
Yeah.
sense.
Full circle.
Thank you so much, dear.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
But wait, before you go, I want to share something special. It's opening up my Inner Circle mentorship. For those of you who are feeling called to experience more depth and more presence and more aliveness in your spiritual practices and in your everyday life, then I want to extend this very, very unique invitation to come into my world in a more intimate way. Starting at the beginning of February, we will be opening up a philosophical study looking at the power of now. And alongside these philosophy classes, I will be also offering unique sessions that include somatic facilitation and elemental embodiment using breath and energy awareness that will help you connect more deeply to your own innate inner wisdom, as well as learning how to listen to what your body really is trying to say to you, is trying to speak to you through breath, through your nervous system, through your emotions. And this inner circle isn't just a place where you can just go through the motions on repeat, where it's the same old routines, the same old practices, the same old philosophical lessons. This is an alive space filled with real people who want real teachings, real practices, and real support. If you're someone who wants to feel connected, regulated, inspired, and held as you walk along this spiritual journey, then I'd invite you to come in and join us. We are here to greet you, all of you, and you can show up however you are, messy, in process, in between states, practicing, not practicing, we are here to hold you and create a sacred space, a sacred time for you to connect to your most valuable resource, which is yourself. This is soul-centered self-care, and it's here to help you create practices in a way that actually work for you in this season of your life. And you can do this with my support and alongside a global community of people who know your name and truly get it. I'm so in love with these big, beautiful humans that are in my inner circle, and I would invite you to come inside and become a part of it. It's open for a limited time this month. We're starting in February with these deep exploration of classes, and you're going to get a special limited time price when you come in the next few weeks. So I cannot wait to see you. This is a year mentorship, and we're going to go deep into all of these beautiful practices, looking at philosophy, energy, embodiment, the elements, and how to regulate your nervous system in a way that feels like it's truly serving you. So I'd love to welcome you in, and you can find all the details in the show notes. And as always, thank you so much for walking this path with me, for being here. I truly am grateful for your presence and sending you big love for this big, beautiful new year. Welcome to 2026. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.